All right, so we're going to be recording now, and again, we're just going to lead in with a natural, organic intro like this, rather than my normal announcing myself. And so Jim, I wanted to start today with something a little different. Because we were talking last podcast about how I have no idea what you look like. Nobody has any idea what you look like, and I wanted to get like an avatar for you. So I was thinking we could just use the power of Google to do a search and find the appropriate imagery that will give us something that we can use.
It's funny, I'm on Google right now through Firefox, and there's an Indian writer named Jim Pinto. He does tech writing, so he's all over the place. You see him all the time when you do a search for Jim Pinto. My books come up, and Kickstarter images come up long before you see anything. I'm not even on here that I know of. I can't find me.
So there's not. Okay. So well, we're not going to Google search that way. Here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to, and people might hear a slight echo on Jim's end because I had to move the mic, and we are aware of some mic issues that are going on. But just for the purposes of this exercise, what we need is a physical description of you, Jim. And then I'm going to just type it into the Google search, and we're going to see what comes up. So, like, we can start with anything you want. Like, for example, do you have a beard or no beard?
Let's just go with sexy and irresistible. Let's just
use those. Okay, but these have to be terms that you would think are at least plausible or accurate, right? So, and I don't know what you look like. So if those are plausible, let's go.
Those are not plausible or accurate, not at all.
So let's start with facial hair. Do you have a beard?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So bearded. All right. You're a man. And
questionable.
Okay. Well, do you want me to put like soy boy or something, or like?
I don't even know what that means.
That's like the derogatory term for like a guy who isn't very masculine that people have been using.
Oh no, I actually look masculine.
Okay. All right. So bearded masculine man.
I'm a biker. I look like a biker. If you saw me on the streets, you would think.
Really? Is that serious? You look like a biker?
I look like a biker. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's a surprise. I did not imagine a biker.
Yeah.
All right. And any distinguishing features that you think would be like if somebody looked at you, they'd be like, "Oh, that guy's got a nose, or he's got like really striking eyebrows." Huh?
I have a lot of tattoos.
Okay. Now I feel like you might just be lying to me just to.
Okay.
No. All right. So, what about general size and frame?
Well, I'm an older man now, so I put on weight.
All right. So, is overweight appropriate, or is that not the right word?
I'm just hefty.
Hefty.
Chubby.
All right. Hefty. We'll go with hefty. What about and general age range?
I'm pushing 50.
All right. So I'm gonna.
This is all great. Now everybody's finding out all this horrible stuff about me. He's a fat old man. We knew it.
So we'll say bearded, middle-aged, masculine biker with tattoos. Oh,
and that's going to get us an avatar?
Yep. Let me just see. Where should the hefty go in this? I don't think Google really cares, but bearded, hefty, middle-aged, masculine biker with tattoos. And hopefully we'll get an image that we can then use for Jim. Now, do you want me to just use the first one that pops up?
I think that's the best way to go.
All right, so let me see if I can get the link, and we'll definitely have to. You know what we'll do? We'll use this for the image of the show, and we'll confuse people who just see it. So that's the first image that pops up. Let me know if it works on your end.
Are you sending it to me?
Yeah, I just sent it. Hopefully, yeah, I sent it to you.
Where is
in the Skype chat?
Yep. I was looking.
And I got to show you the second one. This is actually the third one, but this is the least expected one that came up. Frankly, I was expecting something much worse than what we got.
That is hilarious. He looks like he used to sell motorboats. Oh, jeez, that's even worse. Oh,
yeah, that one was pretty bad. That one. I think we should use that one for the show.
Absolutely. That is so bad. That is my arch enemy, that guy right there.
Do you resemble this guy in any way, or is this?
No,
Do you resemble the first guy in any way?
No.
All right, so Google image search obviously doesn't work for this purpose, but it's entertaining.
Fantastic.
So now we can use that for your avatar. But actually, what we wanted to talk about today was guitarists and a list that Jim had found of, what was it, 43 or 41?
Yeah, a very convenient number, 43. Everybody measures things in the top 43.
Yeah, maybe they just built the list, and then when they got to the end and couldn't come up with any more, that's when they stopped.
Yeah.
And
that's
so this is it's history101.com, which is a site I've never heard of. Is that a site you go to, or did it just cross your feed?
No. This was an ad that showed up in on one of those clickbait sites. I was reading a news article about something, and I saw top 43 guitarists of all time. I said, well, I got to click on that. And, of course, the whole list is bad.
Now, okay. Now the only thing is...
any of the people belonged on the list.
Now, here's the thing a little bit interesting. When we go through the list, you can tell me if this is accurate, but I just kind of turned it on again, and when I started going through the list, I feel like it's going in a slightly different order than the first time when I looked at it.
No,
so
it's the same order on my screen.
Okay, you get the same order? All right, so then maybe I just forgot. But you basically thought it was a terrible list, right? You were not.
Yeah.
And so I guess number one, before we even begin, obviously whoever put this list together, we're doing exactly what they want, because half the time when people make these lists, they'll make selections that are bad just so people get angry and talk about them. Do you know what I mean? And
right.
There's a good chance that there's a little bit of that going on here. But this list isn't so outrageous that I feel like it gets into that. I feel like it's just a list that rubbed you the wrong way. So
first of all, it's a rock and roll list. I don't think there's a single metal guitarist on here. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember there being one either. Tony Iommi's on there. So
yeah, okay.
And there's a couple of people that dipped their toes in the metal genre, but there weren't. I don't believe there was like a pure metal guitarist on the list. Which is, I mean, even if you don't listen to metal, there's so many virtuoso guitar players in metal that one of them should be on there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they do have Van Halen, who a lot of people would classify as metal, but still, and I think the other thing I wanted to sort of hash out before we even go down the list is just what's the criteria here? Did they explain the criteria of the list, or is there not?
I don't think they did.
Okay.
I mean, I could go back to the first page.
Because with guitar, it's not just about lead, right? You could also be talking about a rhythm guitarist. You could be talking about all these other, how good they are at writing riffs, how significant they were in terms of their impact. There were definitely people that didn't make the list that I was sort of scratching my head at. Like, they didn't have Hank Marvin on the list, and they didn't have Django Reinhardt on the list, which amazed me. And they didn't have and I thought Chuck Berry's positioning on the list was very questionable if you're doing a rock and roll thing.
Yeah.
Because he basically invented the sound. Like, you kind of have to put him at number one if you're going to put him that low. Like, he was number 3 or 4. So, if they put him at 15,
and how is Robert
then
Johnson on the list, right?
there's a. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we go through the list, and then after, if we get through it, we might have to skip because it's just like a slideshow listicle thing. So we'll see how well this works. But once we go through it, then we can maybe give our personal take on what we would do if we were making a list. Not quite 43, but maybe our top 10 or whatever.
Right.
So I don't know. So the first entry, number 43, is Bo Diddley. How are you with the list so far? Is this working for you? Is Bo Diddley?
Bo Diddley's fine. I don't know that he's in the top 43, right? If you start looking at the entire bevy of history, of guitar history, how do you say that Bo Diddley is number 43? He's entertaining, but the best? Better than Buckethead?
Well,
right?
Well, again,
He's
I think
not on the list. I mean,
I think we have to look at this with the understanding that they're doing a rock and roll thing, and so predominantly what we're seeing are like the people that were influential in rock and roll and blues and stuff like that. And so let's look at their explanation. So let's see. So it says
So if you go to the very first page, it said these people are movers and shakers, and they've been exciting crowds, something, something, something along those lines. It just says best. It
Okay,
doesn't say
just the
anything
best.
about being influential or being groundbreaking or these guys broke the race barrier, anything like that.
Okay.
And then
okay.
you get to Bo Diddley's introduction, and it says he was a major influencer on Elvis Presley and was largely responsible for translating blues into rock and roll.
So I mean, that's pretty significant. If that, because I don't know a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that doesn't seem too questionable. If that's
Right.
Now the next one on the list is Johnny Ramone, number 42. What's your feeling on that?
How does he make a top 200 list, let alone a top 43 list? I just don't get it.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's a perfect example of a 4-chord guitarist.
And I think a lot of this is going to depend. Like, I have a very strong anti-punk bias. I'm just not into punk. And when I was playing guitar, we always looked down on the punk rock bands.
Right.
So I have to say that I can't be objective about it, because I know that there are people who love punk and have a totally different point of view as musicians about punk than I do. And I know that there are people that would defend putting a person like this on the list. But to me, I mean, maybe I don't know enough about the Ramones, but I just don't see how this makes a top any guitarist list at all. It just doesn't. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not objective about it, but I'm a little bit perplexed by, how that gets on there. Number 41 is Jerry Garcia. How about that?
I have never heard a Grateful Dead song in my life. I have no idea what Jerry Garcia sounds like, but I just know that they play stoner music.
I've heard Grateful Dead songs and I can't get into them, so I really can't comment on this because I don't really know much about Jerry Garcia's guitar playing. It's just not a band that ever resonated with me, so I never explored them enough that I would have been able to evaluate his guitar playing. So I guess we'll just give that one a pass. Okay, Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell is on this list.
I don't think of her as a guitarist. I think of her as a singer. So this one surprised me.
Yeah, and their reasoning is because of the tuning she used on her guitar.
Right.
And I did notice she was also on a lot of the people that are on this list were also on a Rolling Stone top 150 or top 100 list. And they gave
always a questionable list too. I do not like Rolling Stone, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and what's interesting is the reason they gave was exactly the same. And so that suggests to me that whoever was making this list maybe was just copying that, unless it's something that, again, I'm not a huge Joni Mitchell fan, so maybe this is her big contribution to guitar playing, but again, I think, I don't know, I've never been hugely into different tunings of guitars, so this is another one that I don't think I would really have a strong opinion either way on. She's an acoustic player, right? And she's a singer, like you're saying, but I think it's reasonable to include somebody from that genre on a list like this. I don't really have a strong opinion.
But number 40?
Well, I guess it depends on what does that mean to you? Because to me, that means she's really low on this list, right?
Right, but there's got to be easily 100,000 guitarists in the last 150 years, right? Across all styles of music.
Yeah.
So how do you put somebody to say that somebody is 40 is number 40 on a list, and just measuring them against a Rolling Stone list is not a fair.
What you want is like, you want a virtuoso list, and this isn't a virtuoso list.
Yeah,
this is
there's nobody on here is a virtuoso.
Well, but
to my knowledge.
Well, keep in mind so they're looking at her tuning, right? And so, like, as a guitar player, I can say, like, okay, if she was doing something interesting with tuning, and that affected the kinds of chords that she was playing and all this stuff, then maybe she did contribute something meaningful enough that she should make a list like this. It doesn't mean that if you put her up against Joe Satriani or something, that there's going to be any comparison between them when it comes to soloing and stuff. But I could sort of see the why they might include this sort of person on the list. I just don't. Again, I'm not a Joni Mitchell fan, so it's not one that I would really be able to weigh in on. But my feeling is, this is like a popular. A list of people that folks are mostly going to recognize. I guess the question is, on a list like this, obviously there are much more obscure guitar players that maybe musicians and connoisseurs are influenced by, and would those that would be almost a different list, like the musician's guitarist list or something. But let's see so the next one is Buddy Guy. What are your thoughts on Buddy Guy?
Buddy Guy is not necessarily a technical guitar player. He's more of an artsy blues. He's a blues guitar player, right?
Yeah.
So he puts a lot of emotion into things, and so if you say Coltrane is a great trumpet player because of the emotion that he put into trumpet playing, not because of his range of talent. And I'm not questioning Coltrane. I'm just speaking in terms of metaphor. Then Coltrane alone as an artist is fantastic because of the emotion that he puts into the trumpet.
Yeah.
So is Buddy Guy therefore because of the emotion he puts into playing? I'm not even saying they're comparable. Again, it's just an analogy. If Buddy Guy is really good because of the emotion he puts into the guitar, then maybe he belongs on a list. But he doesn't belong on a list because of his technical precision.
Well, I think, okay, so here's where I think we get into interesting territory, because when you're talking about blues guys, the emphasis isn't on technical precision, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of blues guys on this list because this is about rock and roll is so influenced by the blues. And it's not like a guy who has all the technical precision in the world can necessarily do what Buddy Guy does, right? Because there's like a subtlety to that kind of playing that it's still technique. It's just not technique like sweeping, tapping, arpeggios. It's not all this sort of technique that we would think of that kind of came to a head during the 80s, right? So I feel like it belongs in the list because I feel like it's still part of the craft. Do you know what I mean? And that there's a real solid tradition of guitar playing in the blues genre. Again, I was never a blues player. I wasn't hugely into the blues, but I think in this case I would say that it belongs in the list.
So the interesting thing about these kinds of lists, and we'll probably end up saying this a lot here, is that Rolling Stone is very anti-metal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And rock and the blues are not exactly the same thing. We know that the blues influenced rock, but they're not the same. Punk rock is not the same as rock. And all these genres seem to get a lot more footing on these kinds of lists, especially with Rolling Stone. And because metal always gets the cold shoulder. And I think this guy, his name is Matthew Black, by the way, the guy that made this list. And if you could, on the first page, you could read his bio. He's a historian. I don't know how much of a musician he is. So I think a lot of this comes down to compressing popularity because rock is so much bigger as a genre than metal is. And metal always gets, I don't know. Tony Iommi is an easy pick because everybody knows Black Sabbath, and they transcend boundaries.
And I think, and in looking at this list, I'm seeing a lot of this person was influential for this reason, which is kind of how a historian would think. That's kind of like you know what I mean. So I can sort of see where he's coming from. The next guy on the list is Tony Iommi. He's number 38. Yeah. And so let's see what is his. I don't really see him elaborating too much here.
Yeah, it only contributed to a unique style that Iommi came to call his own.
Yeah, and so they talk about how So here's the thing. Here's why Django Reinhardt not being on the list really bothers me. Tony Iommi lost the tips of his fingers, and that's one of the reasons why he plays the way he does. And he was hugely influenced by Django Reinhardt, who I think lost. I don't know if he lost 2 fingers or I forget how many fingers, but like one of his hands was super messed up from a fire, and he devised a whole way of playing around the problem. So he's the guy, whenever a guitarist has an injury, he's the guy every guitarist thinks of. Do you know what I mean? When you're like, I need to work around this injury, you say, well, Django Reinhardt did it, so I have to be able to do it too. Do you know what I mean? And also he was a great player. It's worth going back and listening to some of those Django Reinhardt recordings. So I think Tony Iommi belongs on the list for sure. And I feel like it's also I don't know, that when I saw him on the list that I didn't see Django, that was where I sort of started to raise my eyebrows a little bit. What about the next one, Tom Morello? And if you want to just pass and keep moving, you can just say pass, but go ahead.
No. I really like Tom. I've seen a lot of videos where Tom talks about his style and where it came from. I don't know if Tom's better than Iommi. I think what he's done is fantastic and it's unique. His style is is very different from everybody else you're hearing in. And I don't even know where Rage Against the Machine falls on the music spectrum. Their genre is difficult to place.
They're really difficult to place because as a metal fan, I remember when grunge was happening. I never got into Rage Against the Machine, but they had that song Freedom, and I remember really liking the crescendo of that song. As like a metal fan, I thought I was like, wow, that's got like a lot of aggression and like power behind it. And the guitar playing to me was definitely doing something different, and he obviously has been imitated by a lot of people, so I think he belongs on the list.
He belongs on the list. I don't know where he belongs. But...
I would agree. What about Angus Young? He's number 36.
Yeah, what the hell? How is he better than either of those two we just looked at?
Well, I think he's hugely influential.
Okay.
Like in terms of rhythm playing. Do you know what I mean? Like if you step away from things like
his brother was the amazing rhythm player, Malcolm.
I mean, well, that's true. I might be getting them confused because I don't really know a lot about the difference between them when they're playing songs. He's kind of the face of the band, so he's always the one I imagine playing things. But if most of the rhythm stuff is coming from his brother, but I mean he does have a lot of. I'm pretty sure he did a lot of the riffs, right? Like I know when I've seen them play on videos and stuff, he's kind of doing the lead riffs. It seems.
Yes.
I mean, I think a lot of people were influenced by this guy, so I don't really have an issue with him being on a list of guitar players just due to his influence. But, I don't think of him as a technically, precise guy or anything like that. But I think he was influential. Okay, Brian May is number 35. Why don't you give your opinion first? Because I have strong opinions on Brian May.
I really like Queen. I don't think they make bad stuff, but I think they made popular stuff. Mm-hmm. Did you see the movie yet?
Oh, yeah. So I have a podcast on the movie, actually.
So Brian's one of the... This is complicated. I don't know what to say here. Brian's one of the producers behind the film.
Yeah.
He spent 10 years trying to get this thing made. And then the movie gets made, and his character looks like an idiot in the film. Yep. They make it look like the only brain in the band is Freddie Mercury. I don't know why I was drawing a blank on his name. And so I don't know what to think when you see a biopic like that. And if it's true, Brian was just doing what he was told.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, so number one, Brian May is like a physicist in real life. So it's weird that he kind of gets painted that way in a movie that he produced. Do you know what I mean? But my understanding of Queen, I mean, I don't think that he was just doing what he was told. I think it's just the way that a lot of those, when it depends on the song, right? Like Bohemian Rhapsody was Freddie Mercury's song, so he was directing that ship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Brian May wrote a lot of songs on his own. Like it was like 50, it's not 50-50 because I mean, obviously, Taylor wrote a lot of songs too. But I mean, the two main songwriting forces in that band are Mercury and May, and you don't have Queen without one or the other.
Right.
So, but in terms of playing, I mean, Brian May he's an amazing guitarist. He has a totally unique sound. You know it's him the moment you hear him playing. Do you know what I mean? And part of that is because he plays with a coin rather than a pick, and so you can hear it when he's plucking. But he's also really great at, like, a lot of players will do the sweeping thing, which sounds tremendous and wonderful. But Brian May is the kind of player that you listen to if you want to hear how to play a picking style over that kind of elaborate lead play. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't do the sweeps so much, but if you want to hear every note picked, he's kind of the guy to go to. And he's just got like a really great, like in the early recordings especially, some of that heavy stuff he was doing was really heavy for the time. And also just he's a master of controlling the sound of his instrument. Do you know what I mean? He understands all the technical aspects of a guitar. He understands like how the electronics work. I've seen videos of him explaining like how to get different sounds through amplifiers and stuff. And he's really like he's up there with like he's probably the top of the list for guys who just know how to control the science of the guitar. And that's a big deal. So I think he belongs on the list for sure. I wouldn't put him at 35. I'd put him much lower, but I think he belongs on the list. Okay, Willie Nelson, number 34.
Let's just skip this. This
Yeah.
doesn't even deserve our attention.
Okay. I don't even think I've paid attention to Willie Nelson's guitar playing.
He's just a strummer. He's just a strummer.
Robbie Krieger.
I don't even know that I know who that is by name.
He's the guitar player from the Doors.
Yeah, not a band I like, so I can't speak to this without being biased. So.
Okay. So I liked the Doors growing up, and Robbie Krieger was actually a big influence on me as a guitar player. The reason why is he played with his fingers, not with a pick. And he had I think he had a classical background or something. So you can hear that when he's playing. That's why it doesn't sound as heavy on a Doors album when the guitar is playing, because he's playing with his fingers. But what it leads to is a lot of him sort of alternating between lead, rhythm, and melodic lines, and I just think it's a really nice sound. So I think that he deserves to be on the list because there aren't that many finger players like him, and he's quite good, and he's also a prolific songwriter. So I would say he belongs on the list. Though I think one of these days we should do a Doors special to get your full opinion on the band.
I don't like them. So.
No, I know. That's why I think it would be interesting. So the Edge is the next guitarist, number 32 from U2. This
is clearly the bias of Rolling Stone and these kind of consumers' opinions, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anybody more vanilla on this list than the Edge.
When I think of the Edge's guitar playing, I think of somebody who barely plays the guitar. Not like in terms of skill level, in terms of it doesn't feel like they're actually playing half the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just sort of what exactly is the guitarist in this band doing? Do you know what I mean? And on the one hand, maybe they're making space for other instruments, and maybe that's a good thing, but I just don't. I feel like guitar needs to be more assertive.
But the other instruments are the bass and the drum, right? There's only the four instruments, the three instruments in the band.
Well, and the vocals. But, okay, what about Elmore James?
Which one was he? I'm trying to remember. Is he another blues player?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know enough about him. I really should go research Elmore James. Is he one of the ones that influenced Robert Johnson?
I don't know, but he's one of the guys that helped sort of, bring blues into the rock realm.
Because he's from Richland, Mississippi, according to the site, and that's where all those sounds were happening at the time.
And I have to admit, I don't know much about him either. So he's not someone whose music I'm as familiar with. So
there were three different guys who were influential for Robert Johnson who got him to where he was. And he's the one that eventually makes blues. He's really the first blues / rock crossover guy, right? Because rock didn't exist yet, and he was opening up the doors to picking up the speed for blues and everything else. He was just amazing. But he only recorded, 20 songs or something before he died?
I don't know the exact chronology of it because I've heard a lot of different renditions of the history, but either way, this guy looks like he legitimately belongs on the list. Just examining him to me, right here.
Right. But I think he's one of the guys that influenced him, is what I'm saying. That influenced Robert Johnson. So even if that's, I can't finish my thought there, but I think he belongs on the list too. I just need to research him some more. I'm pretty sure he's one of the guys I'm thinking of.
Okay, and the next guy is Scotty Moore, who is basically Elvis's guitar player. That's kind of what he's known for.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Might as well put the Edge here again, right? There's another, just a strummer. There's so many strummers on this list.
This guy isn't just a strummer. If you go back and listen to those recordings, he's not just a strummer. This guy's a real guitar player. You just don't hear it because you're thinking of Elvis the whole time. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe. I grew up in a house that liked Elvis, which is a really sad thing to say. So I got to watch and hear his music from all his eras.
Uh-huh.
And the Leisure Suit era was somehow my aunt's favorite.
You know what? I can respect the Leisure Suit era. That's the what's the song? Can't Help Falling in Love, right? That's like an influential bit of music.
It is really hard to divorce. I don't ever want to go back and listen to any of that stuff. So now with a critical ear, I would have to go back with a critical ear, right, and actually listen to what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that to myself.
I mean, I think he helped. I could be wrong, but I think he was one of the guys who kind of helped get the power chord thing going. But I could be wrong about that because I might be mixing up people. But I just know that this is a guy who's like my uncle's a guitar player, and he knows every. In fact, at one point we should bring my uncle on because he knows like everything about rock and roll history going all the way back. But that's a name that gets mentioned a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it would be a good idea to have somebody that knows what they're talking about on this episode because we both sound like idiots.
Yeah. Well, we're just, you wanted to do the episode, so here we are.
Well, I'm biased, right? Because I don't like when people do these lists and they ignore you can't just put up people on lists that were influential because there are people they influenced who took it to new levels. Right? How do you not put Steve Vai on this list? How is Steve Vai not here?
Well, okay, so here's a reason why Steve Vai wouldn't be on the list. Is that how many people can name a Steve Vai song?
That's because they're all instrumentals and nobody knows the names of instrumental tunes.
Okay, that's a fair point. Okay, how many people can hum a Steve Vai song?
There's one. Yeah, that's fair. I'd have to think for a bit before I could hum one, but.
And I'm not saying you, because you're obviously somebody who listens to a lot of this stuff, so you might. But I'm just saying, if you just pick 20 random people, how many of them do you think would?
Yeah, probably nobody.
And if you pick 20 random people, how many would know "You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog" or "Heartbreak Hotel"? Do you know what I mean?
But that doesn't make it good.
It doesn't. No, but
popular isn't good. That's not the same thing. That's the struggle with these lists. Is Rolling Stone always wants to seem like they're just a little edgy because they'll put some esoteric blues player on the list. But the other 50 people on their list are, oh yeah, your favorites. You knew that. Glenn Frey was going to end up on this list because we love the Eagles.
Now, here's the thing: I can sympathize if the point of view is we're trying to talk about how these things have influenced music. Do you know what I mean? And what's important to the broader culture musically. I think that's fine. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like you have to. You have to frame it that way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the next one is Muddy Waters. I have no problem with Muddy Waters being on the list.
No problem at all.
I think that's, that definitely belongs. Tom Petty.
That's not controversial. That's not even trying to be edgy or, trying to show their artistry by putting him on the list. He absolutely belongs on a list like this.
Tom Petty. What about Tom Petty?
I like one Tom Petty song out of his entire discography. But
that's not the question. The question isn't about whether we like the songs, right?
No, I know. So I can't. They're all too slow. They put me to sleep. I don't think that's the sign of a good guitar player.
I really like Tom Petty, but I don't know that I ever really think about his guitar playing all that much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I never thought, I want to sound like Tom Petty. Do you know what I mean? Like that. So, I think he belongs on a list. I just don't think he belongs on this list. You know what I mean? Frank Zappa, he belongs on the list. There's no question.
He's a pure artist. He's a virtuoso. He can play and do anything. He's
but
not
again,
my favorite.
How many people can hum a Frank Zappa song? That's the other side of it.
Yeah, probably none of them.
Even people that know his songs would have trouble humming them.
Yeah.
Okay, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top. I can't stand ZZ Top, so I don't really have a. He is
absolutely one of the best guitar players of all time.
Okay.
I cannot believe that Billy's only at 26 on here.
Okay.
Yeah, Billy has been playing for so long. He was Jimi Hendrix's favorite guitar player.
That's how long
he's been around.
I just could not get into them.
You don't, and you don't have to, right? There's
but it prohibited me from even seeing how good of a guitarist he is. Do you know what I mean? Like I just never even. David Gilmour.
Not a Pink Floyd fan either. Comfortably Numb, I guess, has a nice outro.
I will say this.
Does that make you a good guitar player?
I think. I don't know who played guitar on which albums. I'm not a huge Pink Floyd fan, but I've always been impressed with both the rhythm and the lead in Pink Floyd.
Right.
Like if you just take a song like what's the song? Is it Another Brick in the Wall? Is that the big song from The Wall? That song has, number one, it's got one of the greatest like rhythm guitar sections. Like that's not that. I hear that, I'm like, how did the guy come up with that? It's simple, but like I would never come up with that in a million years. And the guitar playing is so beautiful. Like the lead play it's all exactly the right notes. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's really hard to construct lead that sounds that way. So I would say just on that basis, I think it's fine. But again, with the caveat that I don't necessarily know who's playing which guitar sections on which albums.
Right.
Joe Perry, I don't know about this one. I don't know. I've always struggled to sort of get my head around Joe Perry's guitar playing and how good it is. Do you have any opinions on that?
I liked old Aerosmith when I was a little kid before they broke up, and then when they came back, I just thought it was horrible, and so I can't divorce myself anymore from what they became.
Mm-hmm.
I think "Walk This Way" is such a good song, right? Those riffs are so strong, and yet once I start hearing the twang bits, now that I've grown up and I don't like the blues so much, the twangy bits drive me nuts. I have a hard time with Joe too. I don't know what to say here.
I just don't know why. I've just always had trouble evaluating his guitar playing, and I don't know why that is. I mean, I like Aerosmith, but I've never been able to assess his skill level for some reason. All right, so who's next? Slash, number 23.
I didn't know he was from England.
Yeah, he must have grown up here though, because he doesn't have an accent.
Yeah, it doesn't have an accent.
I think he had like a bi-coastal, not bi-coastal, like I think it was mom was like in England and his dad was here or something like that. So it seems like he must have been somewhat worldly in his upbringing.
Right.
But I mean, I would put him on the list. I think that he's got some of the greatest lead work, from that period of time, and I feel like a lot of his lead feels very inspired. Do you know what I mean? And very emotive. So I would put him on the list. But he's definitely in the blues side of things. He's not trying to shred on the guitar. Do you know what I mean? He's not a shredder.
Right.
But so it's a different gear of playing. But I don't know. What's your feeling on him?
I'm also not a Guns N' Roses fan, so they only have one song I like, "Sweet Child of Mine." But the guitar playing on that is so good that it overshadows any bad that the band has done. So that alone tells you how good of a guitar player Slash is.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I don't know if he belongs on a top 43, but he's a good guitar player.
Yeah, I would make an argument for him being on the top 43. But again, I think that we come from slightly different perspectives where you kind of don't like the blues guitarists that do that thing. You don't really find a value. And I when I was learning guitar, like my guitar teacher made me go back and learn like a lot of the blues stuff. And I didn't really like the blues, but I developed an appreciation for what they were doing.
Right.
So,
and I can do that, right? I can appreciate, okay, well, these guys are important. And there's some old blues that I'll listen to and I just think, wow, that is just stunning. But it's not something I want in my diet regularly. It just isn't.
No, and it's a whole different speed. It's a whole different approach. Like when you listen to blues, you cannot be in the same state of expectation that you're in when you're listening to like metal or something that's more just more aggressive and upbeat. And blues is very much about the emotion. So let's see. Buddy Holly is next on the list.
I don't think I know any songs by Buddy Holly except for Peggy Sue.
I mean, he's really important, but like,
is he?
Well, I mean, in terms of just influencing people that came later, he's very important. And but I don't know. I can't say that I really have strong opinions about his guitar playing. So yeah, I don't know.
I think we're about to hit that part of the list. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, what were you going to say?
I said I think we're about to hit that part of the list. I think we're having a feedback thing too, by the way.
Oh.
I think we're about to hit that part of the list where Rolling Stone does its thing and this guy's just going to copy it. We're about to hit performers like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Cream and all these bands that we've heard so much that it doesn't mean anything anymore. If I have to hear Back in the USSR one more time, I'm going to claw my eyes out, or Let It Be, or some sort of Beatles nonsense that's been on commercials. If I have to hear it one more time, I don't know what I'm going to do, because everybody wants to tell me how great the Beatles are, and I'm sick of them. I'm sick of hearing them. And I know we're not on the Beatles yet, and I'm getting off the page here a little bit, But this is the part of the list, whenever Rolling Stone does these lists or anybody else does these lists, that I just get so frustrated, because we've heard these guys. You're just as biased for them as I am biased against them.
Now, do you want to skip through this section of the list and just?
No. I just wanted to say that the reason Buddy Holly is on a list like this, and Neil Young's coming up, and the reason Neil Young and Paul McCartney are on lists like these is simple nostalgia. I don't think.
I see what you're saying.
I think that I'm as biased against them as the people making this list are biased for them. And I've already said that, but I needed to reiterate because it's that important.
No, I get you. And I think but I would make a distinction between Buddy Holly and Neil Young, because Buddy Holly is somebody who I at least see as, he contributed to the sound of rock and roll. Do you know what I mean? But right. Neil Young, he was part of rock and roll as it was. You know what I mean? Like, he came in when it was forming already. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like a difference. So Neil Young is next on the list. A lot of people like Neil Young. I don't really like his guitar playing, so I don't think I can really weigh in that well, because I just don't find his guitar playing to be that great. Do you know what I mean? My wife loves Neil Young, so but I just have trouble getting into him. What about Dick Dale, number 20?
I think the whole surf rock movement. We've talked about this before. Its importance to metal, right? Yeah. The formative years. That video you and I watched about how the heavy sound comes from the surf rock era. I think Dick Dale's fantastic.
Yeah, I just don't know why they don't have Hank Marvin on the list as well. But I think this guy definitely belongs on the list. And for people who don't know that what's the song Miserlou? That's Miserlou. The one that's from Pulp Fiction that everybody knows.
And Guitar Hero too.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah. I have very strong opinions about Guitar Hero. I think it's the worst thing that ever happened to music. I'd much rather people were playing the guitar than video gaming the guitar.
Right. Well, it's for people that want the fantasy. They don't necessarily want to get.
And I can get that, and that I can appreciate. I guess what my fear is, how many kids are being deviated into mastering Guitar Hero versus being steered into playing guitar. Like, is the next Randy Rhoads just going for points on Guitar Hero?
Going for points.
I don't know much about Guitar Hero. I've just seen it. So I tried playing it at the mall once, and I was like, what the hell is this shit? The only thing Guitar Hero is good for is helping people develop timing. So Freddie King is the next on the list.
I don't know who this is.
I've heard some Freddie King stuff, but I don't really have a whole lot of knowledge of him either.
I was shocked that somebody this. Well, I wouldn't say he's unpopular. He may be popular to people. Somebody this unknown to me was this high on the list.
Well, I think when we hit on somebody that we aren't that familiar with, we should just give it a pass, because we don't necessarily know what we're talking about.
And I'd like to just skip the next one. I just think I'm insulted that it's on the list. It's
sure. I mean, I think it's worthy of conversation. This one.
Okay. You want to talk about it? That's fine.
Well, so Kurt Cobain is on the list, and I don't know. I suppose you can make an argument that he did something sonically, right, that had an impact, and a lot of people were imitating him. So on those grounds, I can see his inclusion. But he's not a good guitar player, right? He's just not. So I don't know how you put him on a list. You have to, like, if you put him on a list like this, you have to very clearly say why he's on the list. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to address the fact that he wasn't necessarily the greatest guitarist in the world. Like, do you know what I mean? It's sort of like if you have Keith Richards on the list, you can do that, but you have to explain why. Do you know what I'm saying?
And Keith Richards is on the list, and I don't remember if they explain why.
Oh, he is? Okay, I didn't even realize he was on the list. Okay.
Yeah.
So John Lennon is next, and that's, again, I think that's one where, I think if you were around before the Beatles and then lived through the Beatles, it makes more sense to you than if you were like us coming after. Do you know what I mean? Because they obviously, again, they're sort of in the Cobain realm where they shaped the sound of things, but I don't necessarily think of guitar playing when I think of John Lennon. Do you know what I mean? I think more of his singing. But the next one on the list, George Harrison, he makes more sense to me being on the list, because I think of as the guitar player. Do you know what I'm saying?
He was certainly Was he the anchor of the band? Would you call him the anchor?
They used to call him, what they call him, like the spiritual center or something. I forget, but I
Yeah.
think that was because of his personality, not because of his role. But I don't know. I'm not a huge Beatles person, but like I tend to think more of him as the guitar player. I mean, they both played guitar, obviously, but I just he and also I think maybe because he wrote "My Guitar Gently Weeps," that song sort of plants in your head the idea of the guy being a guitarist. So Albert King is next.
So Albert plays in an era of bluesy R&B, I don't know what to call it, where I think nobody knew what music was supposed to sound like anymore. I think he struggled in that space. He's good, but
I mean, "Born Under a Bad Sign's" a good song.
it is a good sign, but it has that sound of, this is the intro music to a movie. You're about to watch a movie, but we have to fill the credits with sound. So here's a song to do that, right? I'm not saying that it's bad, but I'm saying it just has that feel to it.
But what do you feel about the guitar playing? The guitar playing itself.
It's not in my realm.
Okay.
To be honest, and so I can't really say anything critically about it because that'd be like me talking about how to prepare salmon. I'm not a chef.
All right, so I think we should just give that one a pass then, if that's the. I mean, I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
So who's next? Joe Walsh.
I don't get this one. I don't understand this at all.
I think so. I don't know a lot about the Eagles. I know some of their music, obviously, like everybody does, but I never got hugely into the Eagles.
Yeah.
But I can sort of see it when you think of like Hotel California. Like obviously there are much better bands for twin lead guitar playing, right? Like just like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or Wishbone Ash. But that song has some really striking twin guitar playing that everybody recognizes. And the guitar melodies on it are catchy and melodic. So I can see it from that angle. I just don't know enough about this guy's catalog to really weigh in beyond that. And again, I'm not that into the Eagles. So
yeah.
Do you know more about the Eagles? Are you familiar?
Well, I grew up in that era, so they were on the radio all the time. But I don't really get into his solo work either. That song about it, Maserati, or whatever it is.
Yeah, I didn't either. So I know I would give it a quasi pass, but it sounds like you're very perplexed by it. So I don't know.
I just don't understand what any Eagles guitarist is doing on this list. They're the Nickelback of the '70s.
Okay, I think my guess, if I had to say, is because of the cultural impact of the music. What about Prince? He's number 13.
Oh, Prince is fantastic. He's such a machine. He's everything about him. If you listen to any of his old stuff before he became popular, there's some old live recordings that you can pick up, and he would do these 20-30 minute songs on stage, and he has such finesse and such a groove to him at the same time, the things that he's capable of doing.
Yeah.
And everybody just thinks of him as a singer and a songwriter, but he was the whole package.
No, he's great, and I don't really know much about Prince's music. Like I know what is played on the radio and things I've heard, like when he died and things like that. But I know that he's a very skilled musician because I've seen him perform on stage, and he's somebody that you can immediately recognize that this guy has talent. So I wouldn't object to him being on the list. Also, just his influence. Pete Townsend is number 12. Do you have thoughts on him?
I'm one of those people that likes The Who more than Led Zeppelin.
Oh, okay.
But even I have to admit that Pete's the least talented guy in the band.
Okay.
I think he was probably a good composer, but he's not I just don't even think of him as a good guitar player. I think him as just doing his job.
Okay, all right. And I don't know, I don't listen to The Who that much, so I mean, I know like the songs that are on the radio, but that's about it. So, but I never was struck by the guitar playing. I was struck by the songwriting, but not the guitar playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could
time changes and everything. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I guess you can make an argument for including a guitar player who's good at composing guitar-based songs, but
Right.
The playing itself it doesn't connect to me. Stevie Ray Vaughan is number 11. I mean, he obviously belongs on the list.
Yep, absolutely.
And he's a blues player, right? So, there is but I mean, everybody knows, he has to be on the list. Dwayne Allman. I'm not an Allman Brothers person, so I'll throw this to you.
I'm not either.
Okay, all right, so we'll just give it a pass.
My wife loves them. I don't listen to them at all.
All right, so I don't think either of us can weigh in. Carlos Santana.
I like the song Melissa. The song Melissa is good, but it's twangy country rock, and I'm not a country rock kind of guy.
But twang doesn't necessarily disqualify someone for being on a list of guitar players.
No, it does, but it makes it difficult for me to accurately assess.
Okay, some of that stuff's actually really hard to learn. Like, I wanted to learn some of that kind of style at one point. It was really tricky. Carlos Santana is number 9.
Yeah, he's a really talented guy.
Yeah, I don't have any objection to him. I don't really like his music, to be honest, but I mean, he's a good guitar player. B.B. King. B.B. King, I have no objection to.
Yeah, and I think we would get shot if we said anything negative here anyway.
Why, do you have negative opinions about him?
No, I do not. I do not have any negative opinions. What I'm saying is that he is such an icon.
Yeah.
That he's one of those guys that you're not even allowed to have. Even if he did something wrong.
Yeah.
You just shut up about it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no, he's great for like the bending of the notes. Do you know what I mean? He gets that. He just has like something about the way that he does that. Really, he seems like the guy to listen to if you want to master that part of the craft. So Jeff Beck, I don't really have a problem with him being on the list.
I think he's an extremely talented guy.
Yeah, but
none of his music resonates with me. I don't remember a single song by him.
I'm the same way, but like I recognize the talent, so I don't necessarily have a problem with him being on this. Eddie Van Halen. I'm sure you have opinions about this. This is number 6.
Real quick back on Jeff Beck. He's the guy that discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, there's an interesting story about it. You can look it up online about how we found him. But,
okay.
We've talked about Eddie before. I don't like Eddie.
He definitely was an influential guitar player, though. So I mean, I think he belongs on the list. I just think you and I really don't like him, both on a personal level and on a playing level, and we don't like the band. So, and we do think he's overrated. I think both of us have stated that.
Yeah. So he's definitely not number 6.
Yeah, I wouldn't put him at number 6. Keith Richards is number 5, though. So, I mean, I think Keith Richards does belong on a list like this. I just think you really have to explain that you're not talking like ace lead playing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Richards is kind of a sloppy player, and he but I don't know, I like how he writes, and I like the attitude that he brings to the guitar, and I like his guitar melodies, even though they're kind of rough, and I like a lot. And again, this is a band where I'm not always clear on exactly who's doing the lead and the rhythm playing, but like that song "Paint It Black," I love the rhythm. The rhythm to that is beautiful. It's one of the best. Every guitarist should have to learn that song, in my opinion, just because of the way that the rhythm operates in the main section of it. I don't know. Any thoughts on him?
No.
If you disagree, you can disagree. I have no problem with you disagreeing with me.
My problem with the Stones, and I don't know if it falls on him or not, is that I've heard them 7,000 more times than I've wanted to hear them. Right?
Yep.
And when I was growing up as a kid, on the radio, you could hear Satisfaction or Paint It Black or that other one. I can't remember the name of it now. Any time during the hour, it would be on. The Rolling Stones would be on the radio. And it was just inescapable, and it wasn't the kind of music I liked. And I've heard interviews. I've watched interviews with Keith Richards where he talks about his role in the band, and he doesn't like the singer guy. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Mick Jagger?
Mick Jagger, thank you. He doesn't like Mick Jagger, and he thinks that Mick's job is way easier than his job is. And he said it publicly, right? He says, I have a lot of work to do to compose a new song, and Mick just comes in there and throws some lyrics on it that don't have anything to do with the feel of the song. Come on.
Well, I think they have a feud too. They have their relationship. I think is very complicated, from what I understand. Yeah. And I think it's gone through different periods of bitterness and friendship. But
And they broke up a couple of times, right? The band?
I think so.
Because of the two of them?
Yeah. So, no, I mean, that's a whole other topic too. The idea of like how much work goes into the guitar end versus the vocal end, and the best way to marry those two things. But yeah, what about Chuck Berry at number 4?
Depending on what this list is actually supposed to represent, he probably should have been number 1.
Yeah, I think he should be number 1 on this list. I don't necessarily object to who they put at number 1, but I'm uncomfortable with Chuck Berry being 4 if he's not number 1. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel
yeah. Well, he's so close to 1. Why are you?
Well, it's just like he invented. Like, you don't have anybody else on the list. Well, you do have some of the other people, but you don't have like number 1 is not on the list without him, right? Like,
right.
So, he.
And I'm tired of number 1 being number 1 on all these lists. By the way,
I don't object to it, but I can understand the wariness with it. Jimmy Page is number 3.
I've already said my piece about Led Zeppelin, so
I don't remember your opinion on Led Zeppelin.
I like The Who a lot more than Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin's another band that is overplayed. They have 100 songs in their catalog, and you hear the same 10 ones over and over again.
Okay, I mean, I like Led Zeppelin. I understand getting sick of them because they do get played a lot. And if you're my age or Jim's age, you've heard so much Led Zeppelin. I have a feeling people younger than us though might not have heard quite as much. Do you know what I mean? Right. But I feel like you and I, like, if everybody, like my uncle, my parent, like if you had family that grew up through the '60s, they played Led Zeppelin, and it was on the radio, and it was it's still on the radio if you listen to classic rock stations. So, but Jimmy Page, I will say this: he is a sloppy player. Do you know what I mean? You can hear a lot of mistakes on those recordings. I don't think he's one of these guitar players that's particularly concerned about the recording picking up a perfect performance, so that might be part of the reason why. But his licks and riffs are great. I think just from that part of it, he belongs in the list. And also his songwriting and the fact that he's in again, anytime you have a guitarist where it's just a guitarist and there's a bassist and there's not a second guitarist, you have to kind of evaluate them differently, especially when you consider the heavy sound that they got. But yeah, I have no problem with them. But I think that if you're going to talk about Jimmy Page, that's almost a whole podcast on its own, because every guitarist I talk to has very strong opinions about Jimmy Page, and a lot of them get really upset about the sloppiness part of it. I don't. I think it's fine, but a lot of people do get. People will debate about that.
I think if he were alive today, people wouldn't like him.
He is alive.
I mean, I'm sorry. If he were coming up today, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Well, we're in a stage of we're used to auto tune and Pro Tools, exactly. And so people aren't accustomed to like the same thing with Keith Richards. If you listen to those Rolling Stones albums, a lot of them have, there are some rough patches, but it's kind of part of the charm. So, I don't know. Clapton is number 2.
I don't know why.
I mean, Clapton is a good guitar player. I have,
sure.
There's no question of his ability, and he was also a highly venerated guitar player in his heyday, right? So, I don't think it's a mystery why he would be on the list.
No, I don't doubt that he belongs on the list, but we passed over. There's so many guys at the lower ranks that we did like, that we wanted to see higher.
Yeah,
and you're telling me Eric Clapton is better than Chuck Berry?
Yeah,
that's what you're telling me with this list.
Well, and also, I think objectively, Eric Clapton is better than Chuck Berry, but Chuck Berry is more important than Eric Clapton, and Chuck Berry is more innovative than Eric Clapton, right? Like, that's the reason I would put him so low on the list, is because you don't get the guitar sound of rock without him.
And this list won't make up its mind as to whether or not these are influencers, if they're famous, or if they're good.
Yeah, I'm noticing, now that we're going through it one by one, I'm really picking up on that. Jimi Hendrix is number 1. Now, obviously, I have no problem with this, except for the caveat of I kind of want Berry to be there. But you have issues with it, so why don't you explain?
So I don't know a single Jimi Hendrix song that I like. Okay. I recognize that Jimi Hendrix is good. I'm not going to debate how talented he is, because you watch those live performances at any of those concerts, drawing a blank on the name. because wasn't from around there. Woodstock. If you watch him at Woodstock, it's just outrageous how good he was. But if I got to hear All Along the Watchtower one more time in a movie because they want to let me know it's 1969, I can't escape it. And it's one of those things where it's okay, yeah, we get it. He was good, but this song isn't great, and you've just overplayed it. You've beat it to death.
I think Jimi Hendrix is the kind of player who you cannot separate from the Woodstock era, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just so tethered to that, especially because he died young, so he never really got to... I feel like there was so much more we were going to get from this guy that we never got, and he never evolved beyond a certain point. So you just think of that specific period with him, and I can sort of appreciate it. So my argument for why he would belong on a list like this, I'll make a metal argument for why he belongs on the list. Dave Murray is hugely influenced by Jimi Hendrix, and you don't get that sound in Iron Maiden, I think, without Jimi Hendrix existing.
Right.
So I don't think you could have Iron Maiden as we understand them without Jimi Hendrix. That's not a good argument for him being at number one, but it's a good argument for him being on the list.
Right. And I don't doubt Hendrix's ability. I really don't. I want to reiterate that in case somebody thinks I'm being a jerk.
Go ahead.
I've read these top 100 guitarist lists 1,000 different times whenever somebody puts one out, and Hendrix is always number one. And I think you need to qualify why as you said on some of these other guitars, you need to qualify why he's the number one on your list if your list is about something else.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I suspect most of this is coming from the legacy impact zone, but it seems to veer into talent too, and so it's a little bit confusing. I think with Hendrix, just to sort of weigh in on that so people don't get super outraged, Jimmy, he's one of these guys, like, apparently what he used to do is he would go into his bathroom and just play in his bathroom because he liked the acoustics of it.
Yeah.
And so he was one of these guys that carried the guitar around with him everywhere and was just constantly playing it. And you can tell when you listen to him that he just had that much mastery over the instrument. And I don't think that there are many other guitarists that have that level of mastery at that time that were playing at the same time as him. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe since, but at that time I feel like he brought the guitar up to another level, and so that's why he's important. I think you'll find a lot of different people that go to Hendrix for different reasons. But I have to agree with you. There's a lot about Hendrix he's not as palatable because the songs they sound more dated than, say, Led Zeppelin or some of these other people that were on the list. Like, some of the stuff is carried over better, I think, than his stuff is very just tied to that period. So I don't know. So I put together my own list of my own personal guitar players that I would put up. But I don't know if you have guitar players that you thought.
Well, I'd have to think of brainstorm for a little bit. I want to say one last thing about Hendrix.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
His gravesite is right up here. It's not that far from my house. I've been to it.
He was born in that area, wasn't he? He lived in that area.
Yeah, he was born in Seattle, and he's buried out in Renton.
That always surprises me every time somebody reminds me of that fact. Like, I don't think of him as coming from there for some reason. Yeah. But for some reason, I feel like he's one of these guys that kind of developed an almost English accent too at one point. So do you know what I mean? So for a while I thought he was a British guy. But yeah. So my list, and this is just a personal list. This is just the guitarist who influenced me. This is not what I would put together for a top 10 or whatever number it is list.
By the way, as you're doing this, I'm going to start handwriting down some ideas, but go ahead.
Okay, all right. So Dave Murray is, and this is in no particular order, but Dave Murray is on the top of my list, and he's probably my favorite out of everybody. I'm a big Iron Maiden fan. I like Iron Maiden, but I particularly like Dave Murray's playing, and I especially like his legato, which he took from Hendrix. So I really feel like he's a name that a lot of people don't mention on lists like this, but I think he belongs on it. Dave Mustaine, I think, is an important guitar player. You know what I mean? I think in terms of riffs and in terms of the kind of attitude he brings to lead. Brian May, for the reasons that I stated earlier in the program. Robbie Krieger, for the same reasons that I stated earlier in the program. Randy Rhoads, because of the neoclassical thing that he was doing, and also, I always say this, but he's my favorite out of all those virtuoso players because you can still feel the effort being put into the playing. And a lot of the other guys feel too effortless for me. Andy LaRocque from King Diamond, I just really like his playing. I feel like he was one of the first guitar players I encountered where I was like, how is he doing all this? Do you know what I mean? It was operating at a level that I didn't even know was possible when I first heard it. Tony Iommi for the reasons that we talked about earlier. Django Reinhardt for the reasons I talked about earlier. Jimmy Page for the reasons that we talked about earlier. Kirk Hammett, because I feel like he's not the best metal guitarist, but he's got the most inspired sounding lead melodies. So I would put him on the list for that reason. Marty Friedman, because I think he's one of the top metal guitar players. And I always liked his lead playing. A guy who might not be familiar to everybody, so I'll talk about the band a little bit. John Ryan Schaefer from Iced Earth. I know, Jim, you did not like Iced Earth when I showed you their album first. Yeah. But the reason that I put him on the list is because his rhythm playing is really, really good. If you just put aside stuff you don't like about the band and just listen to them and hear what he's doing rhythmically, he's somebody that you can learn a lot from as a guitar player if you listen to him. And this again, because I couldn't separate who's doing the lead and who's doing the rhythm, I put them both on the list. But Edgar Rivera or John Perez from Solitude Aeternus, because I just always really liked the lead playing in that band. So you said you were writing something down. What was?
Yeah, I'm just trying to generate a list really quick of people that I think, people who didn't make that list, who I think deserve mentions more often. Mm-hmm. And some of these are popular, right? I can't believe some of these people weren't on that list. I'm going to go back to Robert Johnson because I think he's the most important guitarist of the 20th century. And that's not because he was good. It's just because he blew everybody away with the change he brought to the blues. And his story is just fascinating, and all the mystery around him possibly making a deal with the devil and all that. That's just adds. That is one
of the coolest. Like that, there's like folklore in guitar. You know, like the Django Reinhardt stuff. It's true, but it's kind of folklore-y too, right? And like that's folklore. Like I like that when you're learning guitar, you learn these stories and you build a picture of the history in your head. So yeah, I have no problem with that choice.
I don't know how you make a list like this without bringing up Roy Clark and Chet Atkins. They're not rock guitarists; they're country western guitarists, but they were absolute masters of the craft.
And that's the twang style. That's like not an easy style to play. I recently almost took lessons in order to learn how to do that because I couldn't figure it out on my own.
Roy Clark was playing at a speed that nobody could touch at his time, at his peak. And rock music was going on relatively at the same time, but none of those rock guitarists were doing what Roy Clark was doing. And he never gets mentioned in the same breath in these lists, and I don't know why. And it's probably because it's Rolling Stone based, and they influence so many people with these lists. I already mentioned that. Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You should continue with your list.
No, if you had something to say relevant.
No, I lost the thread.
I agree with you about Randy Rhoads. I don't know why he's not on that list, because if you're going to put Tony Iommi, Randy is probably the next most important guitarist in metal.
It's a sin. It's a sin not to have him on the list. Like it's pretty bad.
As a kid, I remember when I was 13, 14 when he passed away. I think I don't remember exactly. I didn't like Ozzy. So of course I didn't like all the attention Randy was getting, and I would when you're that age, right? You're just filled with anger and everything, and so I just rejected Randy out of hat, right? I don't even need to listen to him. I don't care. There's no way he's as good as KK and Glenn from Judas Priest, who, by the way, are just passable guitar players in the grand scheme of things, right? They have a great band, but
you said it, not me. I'm not going to take responsibility for that statement.
They're good at what they do, but can you pick a single solo besides Painkiller from Judas Priest?
So when I think of Judas Priest, I think more in terms of like the twin guitar playing,
right,
and the guitar composition. Do you know what I mean? Like, and like some of the rhythm. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I mean, they're not. I mean, I think they're good guitar players. I just think that if you're weighing them up against like some of the virtuosos who come later, it's a different thing.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm saying is they're passable. They do their job, and Judas Priest is one of my favorite bands of all time. But even I recognize that they're just okay on guitar.
And like I said, Jim said it, not me. So who's next on your list?
I put down Buckethead, of course.
Buckethead is amazing. Buckethead is absolutely amazing.
How he doesn't make these lists just baffles me.
I'll tell you why. Because he wears a stupid bucket on his head and a mask, and it's hard to take that seriously. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, I guess.
I mean, no, I'm serious. I feel like I know he does it for the mystique, but like honestly, that's one of the things that turned me off to Buckethead when I first saw him. Like, who puts a KFC bucket on their head? And it took me like 10 minutes to like admit that he was a good guitar player when I was listening to him for the first time.
Not just good.
Yeah, no, great. He's like he makes if you play guitar, there are some guitar players that you listen to and you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
Buckethead is one of those players. You'll listen to him, you're like, I could do this every day for 10 hours a day. I could quit my job. I could just devote myself to playing and I'm never going to sound like this guy. Do you know what I mean? He's that level of performance.
Eric Johnson. How is Eric Johnson not on this list? I do not understand that.
Who's Eric Johnson? Who's Eric Johnson?
Cliffs of Dover. The song Cliffs of Dover. You can look it up on YouTube. It's a super famous song.
Okay, I probably know the song but don't know the name. But what is he associated with a particular act?
No, that's his band, Eric Johnson.
Okay.
He's just lead guitar player, and he's just.
Well, I think we might have our answer for why he's not on the list.
What's that?
I said we might have our answer now for why he's not on the list.
Yeah. Eric Johnson and who's the other person I'm thinking of? Peter Frampton are the same kind of guys coming out of that era.
Peter Frampton always bothered me though.
And he can bother you, but he always gets overlooked on these lists.
No, and he belongs on the list. He belongs on the list. Like his sound bothered me, but he belongs on the list.
Yeah. I'm biased about this next one, Jim Mattheos from Fate's Warning, and I made you listen to some of his new stuff.
I mean, I don't object to him being on a list of top guitar players. He's very good,
he's on my list because I'm biased, but I love him, and that's the kind of music I want to hear. And the last one is somebody nobody's heard of. His name is Doviadas. He's on YouTube. I am just shocked what he's able to improv on the fly, all by himself on a stage in front of people in real time. He has his own channel and he uploads all his own videos.
Okay.
And the guy he has a memory for riffs and melodies and solos like nothing I've ever seen before.
I mean, there are a lot of YouTube players that are really good. Yeah. There's a lot of people on YouTube.
And he would be my favorite if I had to pick a YouTube star that just blows me away. I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
I should put it in the show notes so people can listen to this guy.
Yeah, we're going to have quite a few links in the description, I think. In addition to Jim's new avatar on the.
In addition to Jim's new avatar.
Yeah.
The hipster douchebag.
Yeah. I'm still surprised that you look like a biker. I never would have imagined that. I never would, because we met through the gaming context. So when I meet gamers, I just don't assume biker. Do you know what I mean? It's just not the thing that leaps to mind.
If you saw me on the streets, you would not know I was a gamer.
Would I be afraid of you if I saw you on the street? If somebody saw you, would they be a little bit afraid?
I'll tell you a funny story. I was hiking one day, and this woman and her child were coming in the other direction around a corner. Mm-hmm. And she saw me, and she jumped between me and her child because she thought I was going to harm them.
So that's a big yes. You look like a Hell's Angel. That's the
a low budget Hell's Angel, but sure.
We have a Hell's Angel. I don't know what they call their headquarters, but like a headquarters around the corner from where I live. And whenever I drive by, those guys look intimidating. So I don't know. I'm still. So now I feel like I have to adjust my manner around you, Jim. You know what I mean? Like now yes, I need to be more intimidated when I'm talking to you.
Right. You need to back down more often.
Yeah, I need to feel like I could get punched in the mouth any time now.
That's so ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it's you. If you imagine somebody being very geeky versus very bikery, you behave differently. Do you know what I mean? It's just human nature. All right. So I don't know. Is there anything else you want to? We've got like an hour and 15 minutes with this list. I'm amazed we got through it. Actually, I thought it was gonna.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna take a lot longer.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like a 3-hour thing. So I don't know, anything to add or cover before we head out?
Do we want to do a drummer list?
I don't know. I'm not drumming. I don't have rhythm, and my ability to assess drummers is very crippled. I'm like I come from a musical family. Like everybody, my uncle, my cousin, my other cousin, even my mom and my grandfather. Like everybody played an instrument. My great grandmother played an instrument. I'm the one that doesn't know how to do time. Do you know what I mean? Out of everybody, like I can play, but like I suck at rhythm. So I don't feel like I'm the person to deal with drumming. If you want to do a drumming episode, you can, but like I will have very little to say. I don't know what are your thoughts about drumming? Like what are you hoping?
I think I've said this on a previous podcast. I think in the last 15 years, drummers have gone from absolute mediocre trash to the most dominant force in the band.
Okay, I think that's true, but I also Pro Tools I think has had an impact on how some of that has mattered. Do you know what I mean? Because I think before, like I sent you that video where they were showing drummers that slip out of time in old recordings, and now that doesn't really happen because of Pro Tools. And part of the problem with today's music is when I hear people playing really well, whether it's a drummer or a guitarist, I don't know how real it is because I don't know which bands use Pro Tools and which ones don't.
Right.
And so I have to wonder how much of the change do you think is due to the presence of Pro Tools? Do you know what I mean?
Watch a Gojira live video
on
YouTube and tell me if he uses Pro Tools or not.
All right. Well, you can't use Pro Tools live. Pro Tools live is a very difficult thing to do.
But when you see just the fierceness in which he plays, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. I have too many musicians' names in my head. I can't draw them all out very quickly anymore. When you see the work that he does and how fast he does it.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't know how he doesn't throw his arm out, honestly. He's a machine.
I mean, I'm always impressed by drummers. I just find, to me, it's like witchcraft when I watch a drummer play. I don't really know what's going on, and I just have no idea how to analyze it. Because I don't even like thinking in terms of time signatures, to be honest. I like thinking in terms of, I call it like micro beats, like just like whether it's like a triplet or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And just like that's sort of more how I think about it. But yeah, so I don't know. But maybe we'll do that. Maybe that would be, my uncle's a drummer, so maybe that would be a good episode for me to bring him on. Because he's got encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff.
We keep saying we're going to have guests, and they keep pushing off on us.
I know. Well, we're very off-putting people. You look like a biker. I babble just incessantly, and so between the two of us,
for people that don't know, we're recording at 9:00 in the morning. I've been up since 2 on Father's Day.
Yeah, and here it's 12:42, so it's
But I've been waiting to record with you since 5 in the morning. So,
yeah, but then you fell asleep or something, right? Like, didn't you took a nap?
I tried to take a nap because I've been up for so long, but it didn't happen.
Okay, yeah, I just had to eat my breakfast and then I was ready to go, but then I stepped out before you didn't take your nap thing. So,
this is the worst part of the episode right here.
This is great. This is the kind of conversation that people want to hear. Like, I don't know. I listen to a lot of stuff online and on radio, and it's when things go into these really unexpected sort of, this is how the sausage is made part of the discussion, that I get the most interested in what's going on.
Right. And I'm happy to do this part. I just don't think it's about music anymore.
No, it's not. It's not. But as long as it's entertaining. But I do think we'll have some musical guests on. Like I said, I mean, we'll start with family. I'll bring my uncle on. I don't know how that's going to go because I don't know how adept he is at talking on a podcast. And also there's something weird going on with his vocal cords. So he say, in the Italian gangster movies when the guy he has to whisper, they can't. He's got that problem. And so I don't know how that's going to translate to him actually being on the podcast. Worst case scenario, I'll bring my cousin on, but we'll get somebody who knows about drumming on. That'll be our goal. So we'll let you go, and we'll be back on with more stuff later.